Hey, what's up? I'm Erik Johnson, and we are roasting coffee. We're gonna roast some high temp roasts Brazil. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I do is be sure I got a nice clean piece of paper and I write down what I'm doing. And then I'm thinking about like how hot am I gonna have the roaster to start with. And I'm thinking about the drum size and the capacity. Like how big is this in relation to the capacity of the drum size? How hot is it and how much it is? So coffee's gonna go in there and it's gonna get spun and turned around, and really hot air, 445 degree air is being pulled through this drum right now. And I'm turning down the flames to cool it off a little bit. What you do leading into a roast has like a huge part to play of how are the beans, how do they do for the rest of the roast? Has a big part to do with like where do we start at? So how hot was it to begin with? How much air is going through it? How high is the flame setting? How hot is it, and what's the air? And that will, and did I just get there in like just 1 second? Did I cruise up to some temperature and throw it in, or has it been sitting idle, or did I just roast 10 batches prior to this one? Because the roaster will change throughout the day, and it will change, over a course of hours of roasting, how it takes on heat. So you just kind of think about that stuff. For me, it's a 16-pound batch, so it's a pretty good size, and I don't have to, in relation to this drum, I don't have to worry about if I don't have to be worried about it too much. I can just give it a good amount of heat, and that's the correct size ratio-wise. I got plenty of flame, a lot of power. So I'm just gonna put it in the hopper. And then I'm recording where are we at? I'm gonna start this 385 for the temperature, and then and airflow is 50%. It's just a baffle, so it's nothing too complicated. And then what are my flame setting, which is, this controls my flame setting. And I see its control right here, read out. There's a max of 6 inches of flame. So I'm gonna just open the hopper, and the beans are gonna go into the drum. Okay, and now I'm gonna turn up the flame. While I turn up the flame, I am looking at this number. Yeah, you can see the flames. And this is where I get a little bit bummed, like new machines, you don't actually physically control the flame anymore. It's like a rotating electronic diode, it's like when you used to dial in radio stations in your car, and you'd actually have to physically turn the tuner to tune in. This is like the old car tuner knobs, where you're actually turning and opening and closing the valve with that handle. And for me, I can feel that. How is it connected to what's going on inside of the drum? And you can feel the pressure and the tension breaking or pushing, and that helps me understand how much force to use with the flame. Where when there's consoles next to a roaster, a pedestal, and a screen, and you're turning knobs, yeah, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm flying blind, how I know how to roast is by the feeling, There's more than just feeling, but certainly is a big aspect to, you know, kind of like going through a roast. But I think there's enough old roasters out there, and there's some like I think there's some manufacturers that still have, you know, these, you're still turning, you know, on and off the gas itself. No big deal. So now I'm just recording my numbers. It helps me take a mental notes, like 3 minutes and 5 seconds. Here's the bean probe and the environmental probe and what's going on. I got the roast started. It's moving nice and fast, and now I'm just going to begin to like stretch it out because I want this to taste like chocolate. And if you roast and you take your time and you're gentle and you're listening to the roast and you get down far down into the roast, Brazil, Mexico, I mean, those coffees can be so chocolatey. Like, it's really truly like crazy how sweet and full and like dark chocolate. So, but I mean, you get dark chocolate and cream, or you get like nuttiness and like a touch, like a hint of deep fruit with chocolate, milk chocolate, stuff like that. Through espresso, I don't know. It's pretty fun. I mean, but it's a really different way of roasting. You aren't trying to like go as fast as you can. You're trying to develop this thing over more time, and you're trying to like really move it gently through to get it to this really fully developed and nice state. So like these are now coming alive. You can see that. I'm not saying the Maillard reaction, like, bam, this is totally it, but it has begun. So I can just make a note of it. 455, 272, 420. So how you know you're entering into the second phase of a roast is you're entering into the Maillard reaction. And so we're watching this thing, which was green and hard and cold. We're seeing it open up. We're watching these compounds before our eyes change and create new compounds that then join together and create new compounds, and it's pretty fun. And this is just such a huge part of the roasting process. So like on this particular batch, I'm going to stretch this out, and I'm going to have the temperature be like pretty chill and the flames pretty low. We're just going to stretch it out, and like I want it to roast and get the body filled out, and it's going to be really delicious and really chocolatey. You could make, you know, you can just like, this is a great coffee in the morning, but in espresso, like a traditional espresso, this thing is amazing. That's how like Brazil's, Mexico's are really nice. Traditionally, Brazil is like the bean. If somebody's going to make an espresso roast, you're going to use Brazil's. And then there's things that you do differently. But Mexico has become this amazing secondary origin that people look for, or you just do Mexico. If you compete Mexican versus Brazilian beans, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible coffee, man. Like full-bodied, super chocolatey, really nice. And as far as like, it's not local, but when you are going out and buying beans from like every part of the globe, every part between the tropics is available. Guatemala and Mexico feel pretty close. So it's really fun to like be having such great coffees be so close to us. And you go to those countries, you go to Mexico and Guatemala, there's a lot of people from the United States living down there. And a lot of people doing coffee, man. It's really cool. So we're like well into the Maillard reaction. They're just taking on really nice tones. It's yellowing. Really taking on. It's still they're condensed. So a big thing that you look at is the texture. It's not just the color, but the texture of the bean tells you a ton about what's going on with it. And these are just looking really nice. So I got a lot of room left in terms of the roast. We're beginning to turn the corner where the beans do this thing where they get closer to first crack. So it's the latter part of the second phase, and you can tell they change. Like their color starts deepening, their texture starts deepening, and then they do physically start to crack and split open. The water molecule H2O is what's being split in half, and it's making an actual sound, and so it's this very objective marker of first crack. And it's pretty much that if it's in first crack, like first crack is happening, you're dealing with like a soluble coffee bean. You can grind it up, you can make coffee out of it. It's super, super, super light, like really tart, really sour, and you can roast it so poorly. Like those really light roast, but it's also kind of fun. There's a lot of interesting things going on there. There's a point in these low, we're approaching first crack here, but the texture changes, the color changes, and we know like, okay, we're right on the door of first crack. And then you've got your few outliers that are gonna go, and then the whole body of beans goes, and then now we're in the third phase. So second phase is the whole Maillard reaction. How long is it? I mean, and that's the thing, the Maillard reaction is still happening. It's just once the crack happens, it's the Maillard without moisture. Pre-moisture Maillard, and then there's no more moisture. That's what the cracking is. And the moisture leaves the bean, and now we're like, from here forward, we're developing the cellular body of the bean itself. And it has a certain flavor. Every bean has its own flavor, so you're really trying to like do the best thing for these beans with what you want. Are you trying to make something light and juicy, or are you trying to make something full-bodied and deep? And that just has to do with your intentions showing up to the roaster. Yeah. Okay. So these are, we're in first crack, and we can tell they've really changed their color, and I'm gonna kind of pull the heat back at this point, because we've moved right through them, and now we're just gonna kind of stretch out. I don't want that finish roast temperature to occur while the environment is super, super hot. I wanna like ease everything up and have things kind of fill out and get up to this nice spot without, you could continue to increase your environment temp, and that just makes what's going on inside of the drum so intense, which sometimes you want that because that's what you're going for, but I believe that the longer you have coffee in the coffee roaster, the more smooth you're wanting it to be. You want it to be smooth, and I think you really get rewarded with huge sweetness. All right, sweet. So we're approaching that line. So you have all these means, by which you can see where the coffee is at developmentally and what's going on with it. But as you get to those finished roast temperatures, like where you want to land the coffee at, that I smell it. And there is something that occurs that changes, and you go, there it is. And there it is. It's like, there it is, man. It's there. And you wait for it, and when it arrives, that's it, you drop it. And you have yourself a batch of delicious coffee beans, man, that you're excited to share with people. It's just a temperature reader, so I know that they're cooled off enough for me to put them into a bin. If they're really hot and you were to take them out of the cooling tray and just put them in a bag or a box or a bin, it'd be not too good for the coffee. So you want it to cool down. So this is the cooling tray. You get to a good temperature which for me is right around room temperature. A little bit above room temp is fine, but like below 80 degrees for sure. And then you just turn on the coolant tray arms, the sweeper arms, and they clear the coolant tray.